Okay, so welcome everyone to the Santa Cruz SPCA Foster Care Training. My name is Brenda Ewing, and my coworker Maria Porras will be joining us today as well. She'll be looking in at your questions that might come through chat, and we'll be kind of answering those as we go. As you guys saw, I sent this all to you beforehand just so you could read it over, but I'm going to be going through things rather quickly, so if you do have a question, please chime in so that we can answer it right then. Okay, so, oh no, my thing is, there we go. So first, I want to thank you guys for being over 180 plus people who filled out foster applications and offered to help us. We obviously rely on our foster volunteers to help us carry out our mission, and that's through all kinds of different foster that we're going to talk about today. Our foster needs do vary throughout the year, so don't worry if you can't hop right on board. We're going to have plenty of other opportunities because we do send out foster animals every week. So there's something for everyone, whether it be a short little foster stint to something a little bit longer. We plan to move into our brand new shelter facility this year, but it'll probably be late summer now because of the coronavirus. So hopefully we're going to be getting more animals, and therefore we'll have more options for foster. And then until this shelter in place is lifted and we're back in the shelter, all of our work right now is being done remotely. We only have one, maybe two staff people on at the shelter any given day. So right now we're desperately in need of folks to help us just from their homes, doing foster care, helping us with the day-to-day operations. We're doing remote adoptions. We're still raising money. All of these things are still happening behind the scenes. So for those of you who are new to us, and I know not all of you are, but if you are new to us, our mission is to provide safe harbor for animals in need and promote an active, humane community through adoption, advocacy, and education. And we still want to be doing that even during the pandemic. So we've made modifications to our normal operations, but our mission, our commitment, it's remaining the same. So where do our animals come from? They are surrendered by their owners, so that could be animal owners who live within our county. Partner shelters from all over California. Lots of times our partner shelters are open admission shelters, which means they take everything that comes in their doors, and oftentimes they deal with overcrowding, they have behavior issues because of their high population levels, and they may not have as many active programs to help them with the placement or be able to work with some of these animals. So some of our main regular shelter partners, we always start with Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter first, and then we go wherever the need is greatest. So Monterey County, Salinas County, Kern County, which is down near Bakersfield. We hit a lot of places throughout California. Okay, are we a no-kill shelter? I get that question a lot, so I thought I would answer it here. We don't like to use that terminology because we don't feel like it really describes the work that we do. There is euthanasia that happens at shelters in every community, and pitting one shelter against another we feel is pretty divisive among shelters, and we really want to work together to reach our goals, and that's how we make the most progress towards those goals. So we don't euthanize any animals for space or time. However, if we have an issue that comes up where there's a quality of life question or the animal becomes a danger to the public, we're not going to place them in a home, and we would have to make a euthanasia decision. So euthanasia does happen, but very rarely. We're lucky enough that we're able to manage our population such that we don't have to make those decisions too often. Okay, so there are two shelters within our community. The first one being the Santa Cruz SPCA, us. We are privately funded, run entirely on donations, all the way down to the food, the bedding, the collars and leashes, whatever we use to run our day-to-day operation is donated by our community. We transfer in animals. A lot of times those animals are at risk of being euthanized from another shelter, whether that be due to space or availability of care for them. And then we provide a safe harbor for animals in need. So if they have behavioral or medical interventions needed, we have the time and resources to be able to take that on, whereas a lot of our partner shelters don't have those available. And then all of our programs and resources are focused on humane ed, spay neuter, adoption rescue, as well as support for our humane cause. Ooh. And then the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter, they are publicly funded. So all of the municipalities that pay into their contract is what funds that agency. And they are responsible for all the animal care and control for Santa Cruz County. So they are responsible for the health, public safety, and welfare of peoples and animal in the county. And they are open doors. So they take in anything that needs their help. And that's one of the reasons we work with them so closely, is because they often do need our help when they are getting too many animals, or if they get animals that they can't work with behaviorally or medically, and we may have those resources. All right, so how has COVID-19 affected our foster program? So this is the first time we've had this many animals in foster. Right now, we have about 25 or 26 in foster. Cats and dogs both, and they're going to remain there until the shelter in place is lifted. We are making new processes and procedures basically every day for following the social distancing guidelines, but getting our needs met as well. So if fosters need to pick something up, if they need to drop off an animal, if we want to do a remote adoption, those things are, we may change the way those things are done to adhere to those social distancing guidelines. One of the big things is that as we get more animals in, we are going to be getting them in and then moving them out to foster rather quickly. So we may not know that much about them. And really, you're going to help us learn more about them as you get to know them within your home. And we definitely need flexibility from our new foster homes, because with everything happening remotely, we need your help marketing our animals and making sure that we're getting the word out. And already a lot of our foster homes have found interested parties to adopt the animals that they've taken on care for. And then last is, flexibility in terms of adoption coordination. We have some fosters that are doing Zoom meet and greets. We have some fosters that are bringing animals to the shelter for meet and greets. Whatever we may need to do, we're looking to our foster homes to be flexible and open to our new processes and procedures. And we need tech-savvy fosters. So obviously, because we're doing things remotely, we want you to be able to take pictures and take videos and send them to us on a regular basis. Right now, we have a big staff drive where everything is being saved so that all the staff can access it. And it's all the videos and write-ups and pictures that our fosters have sent us. Oops. Okay, so when you take home one of our animals, as I mentioned, we're not going to necessarily know these guys very well. We may know some of the basics, but they're not going to be like your pets. They've obviously gone through a trauma even coming here. And a lot of them have a very less than idyllic past. So they may have fear-based behavior or other behavior challenges that come from being tossed from home to home, or never really even having a home, or having a home that wasn't giving them what they needed. The process of moving to a new place with unfamiliar people is very scary, and especially scary because you haven't yet established a relationship with them. So you're both feeling nervous about how it's going to progress. So you want to make sure that you take a thoughtful, very careful, very slow approach. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can do that. And then because they're new to you, because this is a totally unknown situation, even though you're a great new home, you should take extra precautions to make sure that they aren't able to escape. They are going to be considered an above average flight risk. A lot of the animals we send to foster now are not as much of a flight risk because we've been working with them. These guys are starting from square one, so that makes them extra high risk. And I don't know why this one came last. I'll have to fix that. I'll go back and fix that. But even if you've had animals your whole life, don't expect fosters to be like your previous animals. And then we are here if you have questions or problems that come up. Myself, as well as my coworkers, especially our behavior coordinator, Petra, she is always available to assist you through any problems that come up. Okay, so what kind of foster opportunities do we currently offer? And on the right here, you'll see some of our current foster animals out in their foster homes. We do slumber parties, which are overnights. Now, we're not doing slumber parties right now because, as you can imagine, that would be really hard to coordinate and also hard on the animals given the situation. But normally we are sending out animals on overnights, and that does a couple of things. One, it reduces their stress level, gives them a break from the shelter, and it also tells us how they do in a home, which helps us with our match. So when we're back in the shelter, we'll be offering those again on a weekly basis. We do recovery from surgery or illness, and that can be anywhere from a week to 6 weeks. It just depends on what the issue is. We do emergency foster, obviously for COVID-19, doing a lot of those, and as well as things like fires or earthquakes that we've had happen in the past. Behavior, quality of life, a lot of animals don't do well in a shelter environment, and ours is the same as shelters across the nation. When you've got a lot of animals together and a lot of people that they don't know, it can be very stressful, can turn bad quickly, and they can learn some bad behavior habits. So if we feel like it's not a good situation for them, we'll try and get them into more of a home environment that's going to be better for them overall. And then this time of year, we're especially expecting to have cats and kittens. Kittens are generally just born or under 8 weeks. 8 weeks is the time when they can be fixed and put up for adoption. So you may get a mom with kittens, you may get a group of kittens, you may get a group of puppies. Those are always a lot of fun and definitely a lot of work if you're taking puppies. And they are a great way for you to kind of really dip your feet in and get a little bit more wet with foster and figure out how it works, because they do take a lot of effort, but they don't come with behavior issues or a lot of the health issues that you see with our adult animals. And then we offer FOSPIS, which is end-of-life care. This is sort of a new program for us, and we've only done a couple of these, but we feel that given the fact that we can take on medical cases where the animal is older and it would normally be euthanized in a high volume shelter, we feel like we can offer that animal an option, whether that be adoption or FOSPIS. And FOSPIS means that the animal caretaker, the foster person, is taking on the care of that animal through the end of their life. And we're there the entire time making sure quality of life is okay. We handle all of the vet visits if they're needed and make sure that animal has everything it needs to be comfortable in that person's home. But it's a tough one. I mean, obviously you're seeing the animal through the end of its life. So, it can be a hard thing to try, but, if you think you're open to that, that's something you can sign up for. And then lastly is our adoption ambassador program. These are where fosters will take on animals and try and adopt them from their home. And that's kind of like what we're got going right now. All of our fosters have been becoming adoption ambassadors, just with close by neighbors and people they're talking to online. And essentially, a lot of the adoption onus falls onto the foster person, and we train you how to do that. So don't worry, we wouldn't just throw you out there and say good luck. We'll definitely show you the way. Okay, a couple things to consider before fostering. Can you have the animal in your home if you rent as opposed to own? Is your landlord cool with that? Are your family members okay with it? Does everyone in the home agree to have an animal living with them? And so that means your roommates, your family members, your spouses, everybody has to agree. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Do you have adequate space in your home for the type of foster animal you want? Say, if you're in a one-room apartment, you're probably not going to want to take a big dog, things like that. Do you have adequate amount of time to allow for care, play, socializing, vet visits, adoption meetings, all of those potential things, is now a good time for you to take that on. Do you have any upcoming vacations, weekends away, or other events planned that would require you to bring the animal back? So we need to plan for those ahead of time so that we have somebody ready to take on care of that animal if you can't any longer. And then are you okay to handle the aspect of bringing the animal back? That can be really hard for a lot of fosters. I've done it myself, so I know what it feels like. And there are a lot of foster fails that happen where the person decides to adopt, and that's perfectly okay. So don't feel bad if you decide, no, I'm ready to take on this animal for life, that we're perfectly happy to make that happen. Okay, what will you need? You essentially are not going to need anything. We provide you with everything.
Oh my God, is that Frenchie?
Yeah. Isn't that cute?
Oh!
Isn't that so cute?
Princess!
I know. I love it. Her babies were so adorable.
Oh.
So we'll provide
Sorry.
you, oh, that's okay. We'll provide you with everything you need: bedding, food and bowls if needed, litter box, litter scoop, litter, poop bags, potty pads, collar, leash, harness, ID tag, treats, a crate if you need it, a corral or an X-pen if you need to keep the animal away from other animals, and medication if that animal's on medication. Okay, so this is a lot of information here, but mainly what I want you to understand is that you do have to animal proof your home. So you're going to want to make sure that you're blocking all of the tight spaces that animals who might be afraid can get into. You might want to go out into your yard, make sure that everywhere on your fence is secure, that there's no little spots that an animal could dig through or go over. Make sure all of your knickknacks or things that are of value to you are put away so they can't be knocked down or broken. And of course, just like you would with kids, make sure that all of your medications, all of your wiring is safe and secure, all of your cleaning products are behind closed doors and latched. And definitely you're going to have to make sure that your trash cans and your toilet are secure, because dogs and cats will definitely go to those things and try and take things out of them. So just a couple examples of the kinds of things you'll need to do in order to get ready for the animal in the home. Getting your foster animal settled. It usually takes about 2 weeks or more or less, depending on the animal, for them to really get through that initial fear and transition. So during that time, you're going to want to limit any human introductions, keep it to household members only, and even some household members might have to wait until that animal is comfortable interacting with them. Avoid long walks away from home, stay in the neighborhood, or play in the yard. No car rides, beaches, dog parks, pet stores, coffee shops, or other people's homes. This has proven a problem in the past, in that you've got this new animal, you're excited about them, but each time you bring them somewhere new where there's other new people and other new animals, that is a huge stressor for them and can result in bites, can result in the animal scooting away. So again, it's just about trying to bring their stress level down while they're with you. And then if you can crate them when you can't be supervising them, that way if you have to leave them alone in your house, they're safely in a crate or in an X-pen, and you don't have to worry about them chewing up your favorite pair of shoes, say. When they're in the yard, you always want to keep them leashed, at least for the first week to 2 weeks. We may not know whether or not they're escape prone, so you don't want to give them any opportunity. So don't leave them unsupervised or off leash at any time. And then keep all of your handling very basic, nothing invasive. You want it to be a positive experience. And then another thing you can do when you're leaving the home is provide some soothing music when the animal is by themselves. Having that background sound can sometimes help reduce their overall stress. Okay, introducing your foster animals to resident animals. So for dogs, this is going to be a slow process, and you want to make sure when they first meet, you try and do it in a neutral outdoor space with both of them on a leash. You're going to keep it loose because anytime you pull on that leash or try and separate them, actually makes them more interested and slightly more reactive to each other, even if they're friendly dogs. The leash acts as a barrier and it can sometimes amp up that reactivity. Then after they've done an initial loose leash meet, you can take them on a walk and see how they do as they're walking next to each other, maybe have them finally get a chance to sniff and meet nose to nose. And just make sure you're watching their body language. If they are getting their hackles up on their back, or their tail is tucked, or they're showing their teeth, or they're growling, all signs that you need to back up and give it a rest and try later. And don't ever leave the dogs alone, unsupervised together until you're absolutely sure they get along, because you never know what can come up. And then dog to cat interaction, a little bit tougher sometimes, obviously, because it depends on whether or not the dog has a want to chase after small things. And we may not know that when you take this animal home. So the best thing you can do is really, really slow introductions and just making sure that they're aware of each other before you actually allow them to meet one another. So let them smell each other's bedding, let them eat on either side of a closed door so that they can hear and smell each other but aren't face to face. And then when you do start to do supervised meetings, make sure you're reinforcing good behavior for both of them. You can have treats ready to be giving them rewards for good behavior. Okay, preventing escapes. As we talked about, these animals might be at a really increased risk for running away, especially during that first week. And unfortunately, that can lead to tragic consequences, such as the animal getting hit by a car or getting lost entirely, or potentially getting out and going after a person or another dog. So you can prevent escapes pretty easily by managing all of the areas where your animal can get out. This shows you an X-Pen airlock barrier. We have these kinds of airlock barriers at our shelter, in our dog yards, and both of our front doors. So you can create this very easily at home with an X-Pen, and we can give you X-Pens. So don't worry, that won't fall onto you. We'll make sure that you get what you need. But this is a great way to keep them from scooting out a door when you open it up for anybody. Always connect your leash to a well-fitting harness. We don't put our leashes onto dogs' collars because that's really easy for them to slip out of. So we want to make sure that it's connected to a harness that fits securely, that again, they also can't scoot out of. No unsupervised outside time, as we talked about before. For cats, no outside time, because once they get away from you, they may never come back. And make sure that they always have an ID tag on. That collar that we were talking about for dogs is really meant to just be an ID source, and each animal will be leaving the shelter with a collar and an ID tag. So just make sure that stays on them 100% of the time. And check your fencing. Please make sure there's no holes. Make sure your gates are latched or that they have springs so they'll close if you open a door, things like that. Okay, so I'm going to start with cats and the care of both juvenile and adult cats. This really goes for both. You always want to have dry food in an appropriate amount based on the cat's size, and fresh water, and that should basically be left out all the time. Unless you have a situation where you've got a dog and a cat living together and the dog likes to eat the cat's food, then you might have to find a separate place to feed the kitty. But if you can, try and leave fresh water and dry food out all the time. You should monitor the intake of the animal, because that is one of the big red flags for when an animal's not feeling themselves. If they stop eating or stop drinking, even for a couple of days, it can have a huge effect on their health, and they can go downhill very quickly. So make sure you're monitoring their intake as best you can. We do recommend canned food for cats. That is a huge source of water and moisture for them, so you want to make sure that you're giving canned food as well as dry. Just don't leave the canned food out, because it gets really nasty as time goes on and as heat levels rise. Milk should never be given to cats. I know we've all seen it on, media like movies and TV. They can't digest milk of any kind except their own mother's milk. So don't ever give kitties milk. They should be fed away from their litter box. Cats are very particular about their litter box, and they usually won't go to their food bowl if it's close to the scent of the litter. You have to scoop their box several times a day, and that's again has to do with cats being very particular about a clean litter box. And if you're not scooping it enough, chances are they're going to start going outside of the box, which none of us wants. So just make sure you're doing it regularly. And then usually at the beginning, at least for the first week, maybe 2 weeks, keep them in a separate space so they can decompress. Cats don't do as well with transfers and moving from place to place. Dogs are a little bit more resilient in that area, not always, but most of the time they have an easier transition period. Cats, on the other hand, do not like it. So make sure they have a chance to kind of decompress before you let them have full run of the house. And make sure they've got plenty of enrichment. So scratching is something that's normal for them every day. So they need to have something to scratch, otherwise they're going to scratch your couch. And make sure they've got safe toys to play with. So no string. Make sure you're using pull toys when you're playing with them, not your hands and arms. All kinds of different things to keep their brains and their bodies busy since they're going to be inside. And they should never be allowed outside. Don't allow your foster cat to go outside. Otherwise, as you all know, they probably will never come back again. Okay, cat behavior. I put this little cat language sign on the right just to give you guys an idea of what to look out for. But really the big thing for cats, destructive scratching can be a real issue for a lot of folks because they end up scratching things that you don't want them scratching. So make sure there's a variety of objects for them to scratch. Cardboard scratchers, you can give them sisal scratchers, a nice square of carpet, extra carpet often works. But if you don't give them those things, they're going to go to your couch or to something that you don't want ripped. And it's something they have to do. Not only are they stretching when they scratch, but they're also laying their scent down as well as sharpening their claws. So they definitely need lots of good scratching options and options to play. Otherwise, they're going to jump all over your furniture and try and knock down everything that they have available to them. Overstimulation. This is something we see in the shelter a lot where cats enjoy being pet or enjoy some play, but immediately once you start getting into it, you can see that they're getting over the line. And what I mean by that is that they're going to start to really swing their tail back and forth and slam it against the ground, and their ears might go down or might go back a bit. All of those things are telling you that they're getting overstimulated, and usually the reaction for that is to try and bite you or scratch you. So just keep an eye on that tail, make sure it's not going too crazy. And then just a reminder, if they're showing you their belly, that does not mean you should pet it. Cats, some will allow you to pet their belly, but most will not. And the reason they're showing it to you is to show you they trust you. So if you touch the belly, it's actually an abuse of that trust. And then the last one, litter box issues. We kind of talked about this. If you have other cats in the home, you want to make sure that they each have their own box. Otherwise, that can cause them to go outside of the litter box. And then you want to make sure that the litter box is big enough for them, that you're keeping it clean, and that it's not next to anything scary like your washing machine. Those kinds of things could lead them to start urinating or going potty outside of the box. Okay, care of juvenile and adult dogs. So dogs, we usually feed our dogs twice daily and at the same time every day so that they can count on it. And you can also pair that with a good potty schedule. The amount is going to depend on their age and weight. If they're not going for the wet food that we give you, because we are going to give you food when we send out a foster, you can make the dry food more enticing by mixing some warm water in there, a small amount of canned food, or even some warm chicken. Is what makes a difference. Always make sure they've got fresh water available. Leave an open crate available for them, because that can be a space they can go into if they need a little break from other animals, from people, or just need a little place to hide. You don't want to close them in there. You just want to leave it open and available. And then, of course, as you know, they need regular exercise. You need to take them out to the potty regularly. And again, getting them on a feeding and potty schedule is the best way to get a routine going. And avoid invasive handling such as nail trimming, teeth brushing, really any kind of grooming. If they are needed, we can help with that. We have a groomer on site who does this regularly for all sorts of dogs, and we'd much rather she handle that, and that way you don't put yourselves at risk or make the dog stay stressful. And then again, please avoid places where there's going to be lots of unknown people and unknown animals, because even if the dog is acting like the sweetest dog in the world with you, that may change once you get out into the world and there's a lot of unknowns. So, use your best judgment. Okay, so as we mentioned, and this is, I think, more of an issue with dogs than it might be with cats, we're not going to necessarily know all of these animals before they go out with you. So you're going to be our eyes and ears, and you're going to have to report to us how their behavior is progressing. So the main things to watch out with dogs. Number one is fear, and that comes with most of our dogs that we send to foster for any length of time. Takes them time to get to know you, and the best way to do that is to ignore them. Don't look at them, don't invite them over, don't reach out and try and touch. Just allow them to investigate you in their own time, and when they do, drop treats. Make it a positive, and eventually they're going to associate you with those positives, those treats. We do get a lot of animals that have separation anxiety or general anxiety, so they're going to bark or whine once you leave the home, especially if they've bonded to you really quickly. So make sure they've got lots of good enrichment toys. We can give you those. We have plenty of Kongs and lick mats and things that help relieve that boredom. And then, as we mentioned before, leave on some soft music or TV on when there's nobody at home. We do see some resource guarding. That's where an animal is guarding either you or a treat or a toy from people, from other dogs, or from both. So you don't ever want to step in and try and take something from an animal that's guarding it. You want to find a way to make a value item trade. So you can get a high value item and see if the animal will trade for that high value item. And if you're holding the animal on your lap or it's on the couch and it's growling at someone who's coming up to you, you immediately want to put them down and don't give them any interaction for at least 5 minutes. And that kind of gives them the idea that that kind of behavior doesn't fly with you. And then lastly, the potty issues. These animals, a lot of them who come to us, we don't have a history on, so we don't know if they're potty trained. And, about half, I would say, turn out to be potty trained to a certain degree. But you want to make sure that they are crated when you can't supervise them so they don't have accidents. And another good way to get on a good potty and feeding schedule is when you're in the house, if you have the time, attach them to you and don't let them get away or away from you or from out of sight. That way they can't go and have an accident or lift their legs somewhere that you don't want them to. They're only getting to go out when you decide. Okay. Any questions so far? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I had to put myself on mute since there's like motors in the back. My dogs just go nuts for them.
Okay. Oh, and belly bands are awesome for potty issues. My own dog wears them, and it just allows them to still lift their leg and think they're marking something. Only the belly band can. And then you don't have a huge mess everywhere in your house. Okay, if you have an animal that you'd like to, for a length of time that you want to work with, our training philosophy is positive reinforcement only. That means you're adding a good stimulus. The stimulus is, a treat, praise, petting, toy, depends on the dog, what the dog likes, and that will increase the likelihood of the behavior you want. positive reinforcement training, the reason we choose this option is because it builds a lot of confidence in the animal, and it builds the animal's trust in you. So it really builds up your human-animal bond, and that's what you want. And we want to see that even in their new forever homes. So you're starting them off with a good beginning. It always teaches them what they should do, and it doesn't focus on what they shouldn't. So they're only learning the right things, right? The ones that we want them to retain. And you're not using fear, pain, intimidation as any of your motivators, because all of those things will decrease that human-animal bond. And just a reminder, even if it's not your normal method of training, positive reinforcement, it allows us to interact with the animal in a very consistent manner from shelter to foster to adoptive home. So we do want you to keep on that routine and make sure that animals know what you expect of them. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the medical piece. There's a lot of common things you see in shelter animals because they're housed in a place with lots of animals coming from unknown areas. We're going to try and make sure we get all the main stuff, the vaccinations, flea preventative, deworming, that all happens when they first come in. But the things that you see most often in our animals, upper respiratory infection for both dogs and cats, it's like the dog and cat version of a cold, and they're species specific. So your dog can't give it to your cat can't give it to your dog, they can't give it to you. But it oftentimes just means that you have to give them supportive care and sometimes antibiotics, like we often get when we have, bronchitis or a secondary bacterial infection due to a cold. So that's probably the most common thing you would see. And that has coughing, sneezing, nasal or ocular discharge, potentially with a fever and a lack of appetite. And then the other things, diarrhea. Every time an animal goes to a new situation, they're going to have nerves about it. And that's going to potentially cause some diarrhea. So don't be alarmed if you see diarrhea for the first 3 to 5 days that this animal is with you. If it doesn't start to get better after that time, then you want to let us know. But just know going in that most likely you're going to see a little bit of that just due to the change. And then keep your eyes out for fleas and worms. We try to make sure when our animal's in foster that we're communicating with the foster folks to let them know when that stuff is due. And that way you don't lapse on it at all. But if you notice something happening before we get to that date, it's okay to say, hey, I think I might need a re-up on this flea medication or this worm medication. And if you notice any of these things, best thing to do is just let me know. You can email me, you can call me, and then we'll schedule whatever needs to happen. Okay, so the warning signs, these are the things that would definitely need to result in a call to me. There's always 2 people in our foster care manual. You'll notice once I send it to you after the training, there's always 2 people listed there. So I'm the first one. The second one is our shelter manager, Mandy, and we are available 24/7, which means if you come across a warning sign, you need to let us know. And some of these, you'll just have to go to the vet right away. So these are the kinds of things that you want to look out for. And went a little too far there. The ones that have the red next to them means that you may not be able to wait to talk to us. You may need to get right in. If that happens, of course, you want to do what's best for the animal right away. And there is a 24-hour vet hospital, Santa Cruz Pacific Vet Hospital, that will take the animal. But then you need to contact us or have them contact us so that we can okay any treatment. We don't want any of that treatment to fall on you. It all needs to come back to the shelter and have us pay for it. So, definitely, if you can, please let us know right away. If you can't, once you're there and the animal's being treated, let us know or have us call. Okay, so now let's talk about marketing your foster animal, because if you're taking a long-term foster, and most of you would if you're taking a COVID animal, how are you going to get the word out there? Best way to do it is to take lots of great photographs, and your photographs are going to need to be really bright. They're going to show the animal happy or in a positive light. The animal's going to be looking aware and not squinty. just same kinds of things you would look for good photos with people. Videos are also awesome. Both photos and videos can be shared on the website as well as our social media. So both will work. Videos we love even more just because they really capture that animal's personality, and that's what people really want to see if they can't physically get to see them. You can write a compelling bio that tells people about this animal and what kinds of things you've seen in your home. And you're going to know best once you have these foster animals because you're the one spending day-to-day time with them. You can create social media yourself and share it with your own network. We have a bunch of fosters right now who are doing that. They share on Dog Owners of Santa Cruz. They share with their own friends and family on Facebook or Instagram, and it definitely gets interest. So it's a good way to get the word out. And then if you would be open to virtual adoption meet and greets, we can use Zoom, we can use Microsoft Teams, we can use other online tools, but we want to make sure that we find a way to do meet and greets with potential adopters, even if it's virtual. And then be flexible about bringing your foster into the shelter. We will do it utilizing all the social distancing policies. So mainly what that would mean for you would be you drop them off, we do our meet and greet using social distancing with the person who's interested, and then the animal gets put back into a crate and you pick them up from our breezeway where you're not even interacting with any of the staff. So it can happen. It's a little different than we normally do, but we've been making it work, so we would make it work with you. Okay, here's a few more tips for those good foster photos. These were a few that were taken by some of our fosters. You want them bright and in focus. Make sure the backdrop doesn't have a lot of distraction. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll pick a wall with a single color, and then you'll, sort of makes the animal pop.
Did it freeze or was it my internet?
I think it was your internet might have kicked
Okay. Okay. I was like, oh, okay.
But you're back here now? Okay. Always crop out useless space, really zero in on the animal, and you can even zero in on just their profile if you want. And then try and show off the animal's personality. Get them, jumping in the air for a toy or reaching up to grab a cat toy, something that gives a little inkling of what kind of personality they have. And see if you can get them to make eye contact. This is a tough one. And what we use at the shelter is we use little noise toys that get their attention. So we just hit those and they'll look at us, and then we'll try and snap the picture as they're looking at us. Make sure they look happy and friendly, that they're not scared, that they're not hiding. And then for social media, we definitely have Facebook and Instagram, but you can use whatever tools you have available to you, and then we can share them via those tools. We try to have you, if you can, make them funny whenever possible, because that really gets people's attention. And you can even pick unique traits of the animal and do a bunch of posts where you're focusing in on just that one trait. And that really gives people an idea of the animal in question. And then invite your friends to share. Use lots of hashtags, invite them to share the hashtags, and really jump on board with boosting the signal for that particular animal. And then when you return, this is the hardest part for all of our foster families, and don't worry, there are a lot of ways to make this a little bit easier on you. Definitely you want to contact me so we can schedule the actual day if it's not already scheduled. And when you come in, as of right now, we're doing all of the social distancing policies around COVID-19. So I'll make sure to communicate those to you again before you bring the animal back. But when you do, you can bring in all the things that you haven't used, things that you may want to give to a potential home, like if there's a favorite toy or a favorite blanket, we can make sure those things go with the animal, or at least stay with the animal while they're in the shelter. You can do a little write-up, send us your photos, send us your video. All that stuff really helps us to place them. So the more you do of that, the more chances are this animal is going to get snatched up that much more quickly. And then you can check in as often as you want. We're able to keep animals until they find a home, so there isn't really a concern about not placing them. Again, the only time that that really comes up is when there's a quality of life issue or there is an issue with safety. If you're interested in adopting, as I mentioned, lots of times there's foster fails, so don't worry. If you want to adopt, you can. And we just ask that you go through the same procedures anybody else would. So if you have friends or neighbors or family members who want to adopt, if you can just let them know what those procedures are and how to follow up with our staff, that's the best thing you can do. You don't want to promise anything. You just want to say, hey, this animal is up for adoption. Here's how you let the shelter know that you're interested. And then our foster care frequently asked questions. So how long will I need to care for my foster animal? Each, as we talked about, each situation is going to be different. We're going to try and give you an end date, but please know that right now it's pretty up in the air with COVID-19. So if you have a hard stop date, let us know that so that I can put it in your record. And that way, you know, we've already agreed upon the time. Can you take them outside or away from home? As we talked about, you don't want to do that initially at least, but once they're getting more social, more comfortable, you can potentially do that. You just want to be really careful and very thoughtful about it, because even if your foster animal belongs to everyone in your house, both people and animals, that may not be true when you get the dog. Right? So if you are taking them out and about, you probably want to make sure that you're going somewhere where you can easily get away from a lot of unknowns like people or other animals. And as we mentioned with COVID-19, we're probably going to have to do a lot of meet and greets, either virtual or at the shelter using social distancing. Help, I've lost my foster animal. What do I do? Don't worry, this has happened before. It's okay. If they become lost, just let us know as soon as you know. If you can, immediately afterwards, you want to do what you can to check in with your neighbors, do a foot patrol and check the whole area, see if you can see them. One thing you do not want to do is chase the animal. If you chase them, chances are they are going to run away from you and get much farther out of the area that they don't already know, and it's going to be even harder to get them. So if you do see them, you want to get down low, you want to try and coax them with some treats, you want to wait for them to come to you, but please don't chase them. What do I do if my foster animal bites me or someone else? So if the animal bites you or anyone who's in your home or with the animal, we need to know right away, because we have to follow state laws for reporting a bite and having an animal quarantined. So if it's a stranger, we will need their contact information. So if you can get a name and a phone number, we can easily contact them and fill out that bite report. But we can be held liable for not getting that done. So it's super important that we follow all the state guidelines. What if I find myself unable to complete my foster care commitment? As I mentioned before, if you have something come up, whether it was planned like a vacation or something just came up this week you didn't expect, that's okay. Just let me know. We'll get the animal either back to the shelter and then back into a foster home, or we may have a foster already waiting in the wings who can take on the parent. The sooner I know, the sooner I can start working on that. So definitely, keep me in the loop. Can I adopt one of my foster animals at the end of the foster period? Of course you can, yes. And as I mentioned before, just whether it's you or someone you know, they would go through all the same adoption procedures that our normal adopters would. All right, next steps after this training. I'm going to send you guys a bunch more information. I know this is a lot of information. It is. You're going to get even more. You're going to get our foster manual, which goes over all of this in a little bit more detail. And you're going to get some behavior videos that gives you more info on the things that we see most often in our shelter animals. We're also going to give you further tips on marketing. You're going to be moved from applicant to active in our volunteer database, which means you'll be on our foster roster and you'll start getting my foster emails. And the foster emails, there may be a gap as we're trying to get everyone in and trained, and we're receiving animals from our partner shelters. We don't have any new animals at this point, but we are leaving that option open for both owner surrenders and our partner shelters. So if there's a little gap, I apologize. I'll try and keep you guys in the loop and let you know what we're looking at. And then as far as picking up and getting your supplies, I will make those individual appointments with you. And again, we're going to be using those social distancing guidelines for the foreseeable future. So I'll make sure you know what those are before you come on site. This is my email. You guys can contact me any day of the week, and I try to get back with folks within 24 to 48 hours. And then you'll also see you have my contact info in the foster manual in case something comes up. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to me babble on for a really long time. Do you guys have any questions?
One question that I did want to ask was about your last slide. Is it, once they become active, is it first come, first serve if they have a particular animal they are interested in, or is it just which animal needs a foster at that time?
So most of the time it's going to be whoever contacts me first. I'm going to work with trying to get the animal out to them. However, there are animals that are going to require a specific foster setup. For example, we have an animal right now who does not do well with men and had to go to an all-female home. So when things like that come up, I'm limited in who I can send that animal with. Doesn't come up that often, but that would mean that I would be going to specific people looking for a good fit. But most of the time, as I said, on the first go around, I'm gonna go with the first person who chimed in and said, I'm ready to take a foster. You know, I'm gonna contact them, tell them about the animal, and if they're ready, they can come and pick up.
Sounds good.
Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it.
Awesome. Oops. Hold on just a sec.